Early life and education. Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin was born on October 7, 1952 in Leningrad, now known as St. Petersburg, Russia. He grew up in a communal apartment with his parents and two siblings, both of whom died in infancy. His father, Vladimir Spiridonovich Putin, was a factory foreman and a World War II veteran, while his mother, Maria Ivanovna Putina, was a factory worker. As a child, Putin showed an interest in sports, particularly judo and sambo, and he later achieved the rank of black belt in judo. Putin attended Leningrad State University, where he studied law under the guidance of Professor Anatoly Sobchak, who would later become a significant political figure in Putin's career. He graduated in 1975 with a degree in law and immediately joined the KGB. KGB career. Putin's career in the KGB, the Soviet Union's main security agency, spanned 16 years. After his training, he was stationed in Leningrad, where he worked in counterintelligence before being transferred to Dresden, East Germany, in the mid-1980s. In Dresden, Putin's primary role was to recruit foreigners to spy for the KGB and to monitor the local population. During his time in Dresden, the Soviet Union began to experience significant political changes, culminating in the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. Putin returned to Leningrad in 1990, just before the collapse of the Soviet Union, and retired from active KGB service in 1991 with the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. Entry into politics. Upon returning to Leningrad, Putin worked at Leningrad State University as an assistant to his former professor Anatoly Sobchak, who had become the mayor of Leningrad, later renamed St. Petersburg. Putin served as an advisor on international affairs and later as deputy mayor, where he was responsible for foreign relations and attracting foreign investment to the city. Move to Moscow and rise to power. In 1996, Putin moved to Moscow and began working in the Kremlin under President Boris Yeltsin. He held several positions, including Deputy Chief of the Presidential Staff and Chief of the Main Control Directorate, responsible for auditing government departments. In 1998, Putin was appointed head of the Federal Security Service, the FSB, the successor to the KGB, and shortly after he became Secretary of the Security Council. On December 31, 1999, Boris Yeltsin unexpectedly resigned, naming Putin as acting president. Putin won the presidential election in March 2000 with a clear majority, and his presidency was marked by efforts to restore order and stability after the chaotic post-Soviet years. He centralized power in the Kremlin, reduced the influence of regional governors, and implemented economic reforms that led to significant economic growth, largely driven by rising oil prices. In 2004, Putin was re-elected for a second term. His government took a harder line against political opposition and media freedom, leading to accusations of authoritarianism. Nonetheless, Putin remained popular among many Russians who credited him with restoring national pride and improving living standards. Due to constitutional term limits, Putin could not run for a third consecutive term in 2008. Instead, he endorsed Dmitry Medvedev, who won the presidency, and appointed Putin as prime minister. During this period, Putin remained the dominant political figure in Russia, and many believed he continued to wield significant power behind the scenes. In 2012, Putin ran for and won a third term as president amid allegations of electoral fraud and mass protests. His third term saw a continuation of his assertive foreign policy, including the controversial annexation of Crimea in 2014, which led to international sanctions against Russia. Putin was re-elected for a fourth term in 2018. Foreign policy. Putin's foreign policy has been characterized by efforts to reassert Russia's influence on the global stage. This has included military interventions in Georgia in 2008, Ukraine in 2014, and Syria in 2015. The annexation of Crimea and support for separatists in eastern Ukraine led to a significant deterioration in relations with the West, and resulted in economic sanctions against Russia. Domestic policy and human rights. Domestically, Putin has been criticized for his government's human rights record, including the suppression of political opposition, control over the media, and the alleged poisoning and imprisonment of political rivals such as Alexei Navalny. Despite these criticisms, Putin has maintained a strong base of support within Russia, in part due to his portrayal as a defender of Russian sovereignty and traditional values. Personal life. Putin was married to Lyudmila Shkrebneva from 1983 until their divorce in 2013. They have two daughters, Maria and Katerina, who have largely remained out of the public eye. Putin is known for his public persona as a strongman, often depicted engaging in outdoor and athletic activities such as judo, ice hockey, horseback riding and fishing. Legacy. Vladimir Putin's legacy is a subject of considerable debate. Supporters credit him with restoring stability and economic growth to Russia after the tumultuous 1990s, as well as enhancing Russia's global standing. Critics, however, accuse him of undermining democratic institutions, perpetuating corruption, and engaging in aggressive foreign policies that have isolated Russia from much of the international community. As of 2024, Putin remains a central and influential figure in Russian politics, with his future role and the direction of the country continuing to be topics of global significance.